Okay, so we've started recording, and hopefully that comes on your screen to let you know that too. So one of the things we were talking about before we jump into chapter 2, I did see this article this morning, actually, as I was just checking out, looking around different news sites and that type of thing. And I thought it was very relevant to some of the things we were chatting about, even if it was just a little introduction, and we'll be discussing more in the future. But it just hit me because it's literally happening right now. So I wanted to share that with you before I jump into the notes, to show you a little article I found, which of course takes me an hour to actually click on everything to get there, but we'll get there. Okay. And this is from the Wrap, so if the Wrap has it, it's good because they've got Hollywood covered. But seriously, so here, take a look at this. Trump hires new pollster to counter latest fake polls that show he's falling further behind Joe Biden. Okay, we could spend months, years probably analyzing the statistics around the Trump administration in terms of things that have been done, said politically from all sorts of directions. But that's not my purpose here today. And again, I'm trying to minimize my political views, which are somewhat strong, so I apologize for that. Trying to minimize my political views and talk about the statistics. So last class, I mentioned to you that how you go about finding your statistics is very important. And hopefully you realize that when you were doing your prelude assignment, as they were talking about it there as well. Because people are always to be disagreeing with that disagree with your statistics are always going to be commenting on the validity, the accuracy, and anything they can attack on your poll. Now, the word fake gets thrown around a lot. It's beginning to be just white noise because it's ridiculous. But the idea, ignoring the word fake for a minute, the idea that a poll was inaccurate or untrue based upon its what we call methodology is very relevant to what I mentioned last class. I used the Center for Community Studies here locally, and if they go and present at the Board of Legislators and one of the board members hears something they don't like, they challenge how they collected the information. But this is the exact thing. Trump doesn't like his numbers, and so he went out and said, I'm going to bring this group in, McLaughlin Associates. There are a lot of pollsters out there, folks. And I'm going to get my own polls numbers. He was specifically challenging a few polls that were out, right, about him being down politically in the polls. But what's interesting and strange in this particular case is that this company attacked the poll's methodology that he was getting mad at, or the polls, I guess it's plural, right? He's attacking, this company attacked them. And definitely the companies have their political leanings, right? But this particular sent Trump a letter saying, these polls, we disagree with them for these reasons. And I think he actually posted, it says here, he attached a letter of a photo from them saying, this is what the problem is. Folks, this is exactly the type of thing we're talking about. We say, people, you have to have good methodology when you're doing your polls, right? No matter what, people are going to attack it. But ultimately, you have to decide, am I doing the best thing to get the most accurate and valid data? Okay. In this particular case, it's strange that this company sent a letter to the president. Looks to me like they're looking for a job and they are aware that Trump doesn't like the numbers and he might be willing to hire them for that. Nothing against them. It's just they sent him a letter saying this. I'm going to guess they're playing to get a client, but because it's all strange how they sent a letter to him. Looks like a lot of show, but definitely cool that it's talking about exactly what we mentioned last class in terms of our how a poll is done has to have good, solid methodology, and that if not, somebody's going to attack you that doesn't like your results. Okay, so that's all I had there. We'll jump into some different stuff here. But when I see something like that that's relevant to what we said, I like to pop it up. Now, let me jump into today's notes. We'll talk a little bit more in depth now about some of those topics we started last class. So we're going to jump into chapter 2. As I mentioned, chapter 1 was kind of an introduction to what we were doing, or we're going to be doing through the entire course. Now, we're going to start looking at the little pieces that fit together to form that bigger idea. And with chapter 2, we're going to be discussing how samples can be taken. And this is just an introduction, folks. We're going to do more complicated sampling as we go along. It's just right now we're just trying to come up with some of the most common ones you see and the good and bad elements of them and why they are good and bad. Okay, so when I go to take a sample, and we defined sample last time, right, as you take a portion of your population, we call that a sample, and we use the results from sampling that group to draw conclusions about the entire population. Again, that's where that, if you don't do it well, people will attack you or will attack your results because of it. So sampling badly. These would be some mistakes or things you could do poorly. Oops, sorry, I grabbed hold of it by accident. There we go. These are a couple of common approaches that are what we call biased. Big word here, important word. Let me go to my draw menu. See if I can do this. You will hear me expound about bias, and I think maybe Glenn or somebody had brought up bias last class. Folks, this is one of the biggest problems that gets introduced when we're doing sampling. And many times it's completely unintentional. Okay, and stepping away from observational studies or that idea and going to experiments, folks, oftentimes researchers have an idea that something's going to work. And as a result, they're biased in terms of what they want to see the result being, right? They say, this is my result, and they make it happen through a bunch of mistakes, unintentional along the way, right? It's the idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think something's going to happen, you can make it look like it happened. So this is one of those things we got to watch out for, right? Are people minimizing their biases? Our definition for the point of this course is that a biased study is one that systematically favors certain outcomes. So if I'm doing a survey on the example there of Biden versus Trump, right? If I'm a Biden fan, right, I may systematically doing my survey in a way that gets people to say that for Biden. Again, oftentimes unintentionally, sometimes intentionally, but oftentimes unintentionally. Oops. Go ahead, Will.
So, using that,
Yep.
Would it be fair or to question that polls done by right-leaning media outlets tend to show Trump closer or even ahead in some cases in polls, while polls done by left-leaning outlets tend to show him further behind and further away, and therefore could actually either one can skew what the poll outcome is, and that's the intent. The intended outcome is to reduce or increase support for a candidate based on, well, all my neighbors are doing X, so that means I should do X also.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about here. Left-leaning pollsters tend to, and I'll tell you this, Will, yes, sometimes it is intentional, but many times it's unintentional. If you're a respected pollster, right, oftentimes the way you ask questions, the way you select your sample, those ways tend to lean in your own political direction. Oftentimes, again, it's not a bias intentionally, But are there biased polls? Yes, there are tons of them out there. And we'll talk about some of those today. Just looking at Janelle's comment here. Wouldn't polls from left or right-wing media be a form of voluntary response, which means they're polling people from those groups? Okay. Oh, all right, Janelle, you're making an exceptional jump-off point for the next area we're going into. So, talking about the media, right, left or right-wing media, being a form of voluntary response. Wait till I'll address it as we get into the definition of voluntary response. But absolutely. But coming back to this, right? It's exactly what is being described here. You have to question where everything comes from. The moment I see a poll, folks, I immediately said, check who the pollster is, and do they have a political leaning? And again, it's not that it's untrue. It just might be off by a little bit, or it may be right on. I don't fault them for having a political leaning, right? We all have political leanings. It's if they can minimize staying true to the statistics or not, right? That's where I fault them or not. Okay. And that's where we got to be a little bit more careful. And actually, I found a website today by 538. I'll talk about them more in the future. I want to bring it in today because I got enough to talk about. It's a polling group done by Nate Silver, and I don't know if you know Nate Silver he's been on ESPN a little bit, but he's he's like a rock star of statistics right now. But he actually looks at how biased polls are from different companies and their political leanings, amongst other things, not just their political leanings. But he has a great chart that kind of shows, oh, this pollster leans this way, this much, this way, roughly. And it's very cool. But I was actually looking at it before class, but again, it just didn't fit right here yet. But it's very interesting to look at, and I'll show you that in the future because definitely that's just interesting to watch. And again, it helps you as a consumer say, okay, this company tends to lean a little bit more Republican, right, or Democrat. Oh boy, Will, you guys are killing me with this great information, great question thing, because I don't know if I've got it, giving you enough information about it. I don't know if you caught Will's comment, but the polls in 2016 were inaccurate by outcome. Have they changed their polling approach, right? So be aware, polling approaches are always developing. 10 years ago, if you did an internet study, something done through the internet, it was just booed down. People didn't trust it. But now they've advanced far enough to understand and be aware, folks, when they take a sample, they're gathering information from that smaller group of people. They don't always just tell you the results from the sample because the sample may not match. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but the sample may not match the overall population. So they have some math they do there, and it's much deeper math that we're going to get to in here. We're just going to touch surfaces, and quite it's much deeper math than me as an amateur statistician does. Okay, much more complicated. Right? What they do is you guys probably have algebra in your background. You know about X, you know about Y, a couple variables that relate to each other. Well, they're looking at variables X, Y, Z, D, L, J, K, right? 100 variable type equations to compensate for things. Okay. So, and what Will's pointing out, right, is that the polls were leaning towards Hillary Clinton's win, right? And then Trump won. And there have been a few explanations. Some were that part of that math was wrong because if the people that come out and vote are different than the people that they expect to come out and vote, then obviously the way they weight things changes a little bit. Although, and if you look at it, right, Hillary Clinton actually won the popular vote, and they're not basing their polls on the electoral college, right? They're basing it on the samples in the population. So there's some of that there. But yeah, after that little debacle, with actually the wrong candidate being the primary poll winner in most polls, and the opposite happening, there's been some adjustments to account for that in their math. Yep, that's a very good point, Will. And we'll look at that stuff when we get a little deeper into the statistics. But let me bring you back here and jump off a little bit in the direction Janelle mentioned. So bias, again, very important to account for that and say what kind of biases come into play. Here are two sampling techniques that are very biased by nature. Folks, does that mean you don't do them? No, it just means that if you're doing them, you have to be very careful on how to use that data or if the data is even usable. So the first technique's convenient sampling or haphazard sampling. And that's that you want to know what a bunch of people think, but you don't want to spend a lot of time doing it. So if we were on campus, I would use the example here, and I have it down below, of I want to know if students feel that, I don't know, something about parking is always a popular one. There's enough parking at Jefferson. So I don't want to create some complicated survey instrument to do this. So I just start walking around with a few questions on a piece of paper and ask a bunch of people that I run into, right? The cafeteria or the lunchroom is a great place, right? You hang out down there, you get tons of people at one time. It's a great way to get a large sample without having to work hard at it. So I would say selecting individuals that are easiest to reach. Okay. Could somebody throw out a reason why this might be biased? Why might go into the cafeteria to ask people about parking be biased? Right? Okay, so who you are, absolutely. Who you approach is important because people tend to, this is an unfortunate thing, and we'll discuss a sampling method later on to avoid this, is we tend to approach people that look like people we would hang out with, right? We'd socialize with. And as a result, we tend to get results that are consistent with what we think, right? If you see somebody that's very different from you, you tend not to approach them. Okay. Jessica, okay, I'm going to call on you, Will, but Jessica just put down a great answer. Many of the students in the cafeteria might also live in the dorms, right? And wouldn't really need to worry about parking, right? If you're a dorm student, you're probably less worried about it. You might have a car or something, but you've got your own parking over there. But you might not have to worry about daily parking. And quite frankly, if I have my car, am I necessarily going to the lunchroom to eat, or am I going to run over to Arsenal where I might be able to eat cheaper at a restaurant I like to eat at? All right. But if you live in the dorms, you're more likely to do that. That's a very good one, Jessica. Hold on, Will. I'm learning to drive to lower your hand. Will, go ahead, throw out what you got.
So, kind of going with what Jessica said, the other thing is the class schedule sets up where you might not. Well, if you don't live on campus and you have that hour or so between classes, you might get in your car and leave and even go to your house if you live in Watertown, go get your lunch, come back. And therefore you could never have been asked, and you're probably the person that cares the most about parking or access to parking or where the parking is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll take that a step further. What if you're only an evening student, right? You're a family person, you drive at night, right? Yep. Are you asking day or night students that don't live out in the dorms? Exactly, Becca, because, right, if I'm doing lunch and I'm an evening student, you're not getting their opinion at all. Now, maybe you could say, well, GCC doesn't have a parking problem in the evening. Well, maybe not, but maybe. So yes, right, day and night students are a different group of people. And if you're doing lunch, you're only getting those day students. So yes, good. All right. So convenient samples oftentimes limit you to a certain type of person, and you omit people. We'll talk about this omission here with some definitions, I think coming up in a couple chapters. But you omit people from your sample that are a group, that their opinion would influence the results. So that's a disadvantage. That biases the poll. It takes what the answer probably is, and again, notice I'm going to slide back up here. Right, systematically favors certain outcomes, right? Oh, parking is fine because I don't worry about it because I'm a dorm student, right? But it may not be fine, but you're leaning it towards everything's fine because you get those dorm students, or again, you just don't get the people who leave campus for whatever reason. So you're favoring the answer in a different direction than actually is true. For the convenience of ease and getting data quick. And as a side note here, folks, this is pretty much the battle we're going to talk about when it comes to sampling. On one end, we have accurate sampling, getting the most valid, most accurate, most reliable information we can. And on the other end, there's the resources that go into that: money, time, ability to access information, right? All those things. Those things are always at battle with one another, right? If I only have $1,000, I shouldn't say only, but if I only had $1,000 to do a sample, I'm not going to be able to do some amazing sample where I'm hiring tons of people to do data. I'm going to have to settle some. If I had unlimited resources, I could get, hopefully, some great results. But unfortunately, most of us don't have unlimited resources to do that. So always a battle between these things. Convenient sampling is, I don't have a lot of this, so I'm not going to get good stuff here, but I'm going to get something. Carrying on to voluntary response, which I think Janelle brought it up here a few minutes ago, is where you allow people to choose to be in the sample. Now, growing up, and this is an illustration of my age, growing up, used to have your evening news programs. And when I was a kid, I didn't like watching the news. I don't think I watch the news now. I think I read it more than anything. But towards like the last 10 minutes of the news program, and they may still do this. I think I have seen WWMY do this, so they may still be doing it. But they'll ask you some question during the news program. What do you think about this particular situation? Call now. If you're in favor of this, call this number. If you're against it, call this number. So people are volunteering to participate in the survey. The problem with this type of thing, folks, or this type of sampling, is that you tend to get groups that respond to it that have strong opinions, one way or another. Yeah, well, very good. I'm going to point that out. Actually, I've got a couple up here to show you here in a minute. So, and then like at the end of the newscast, oh, here's what people said, right? That's it's called a quick poll, really, oftentimes. And the problem is those people calling are the people who feel strongly this way. Sorry, they'll strongly this way or strongly this way. Folks, that may be 10% of each end, right? The 80% of the middle, which is the majority, doesn't necessarily have that opinion or as strong an opinion on that. But those people aren't going to pick up the phone to call in a poll that they're not interested in. As a result, the people that are going to do the work are going to be the people interested in the topic, and they may not be representative of everybody. So the example, and we'll just put this in the thing, but I'll click over to as I forget how I'm driving here. Hold on. I got this. Stop this one. It's on my other screen. Back to my share. Up here to all you folks. Screen goes weird, and we're here. So this is the Northern New York 360 website. I went to News Junkie because they do this too, but they didn't have one up. So, but oftentimes you'll see on News Junkie I think they use a yellow box of a poll you can vote in. So just their website, right? It kind of goes along, blah, 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 blah. Here you go. Your opinion polls. Have you submitted paperwork to vote absentee on the upcoming primary? I'm going to say yes, and I'm lying. I haven't done that. But you know what? They set themselves up for that. This could be totally, completely inaccurate. It is cool that they gave you the results, right? That makes it more exciting. Folks, this is the problem with opinion polls. I just lied. All right. Maybe I did that intentionally just to torture them, even though they don't know I'm torturing them. But folks, these type of polls are not accurate. They're opinion polls, and the people's opinions that are providing them have to be interested in the topic, first of all. But in addition to being interested in the topic, they also have to be going to this website to spot it, right? They have to go to this website to spot it. So maybe I'm a big political activist, but I don't go to NY360. All right. I barely remembered it existed. I don't deny it. I was looking for Watertown Daily Times, and then I realized. Then when I typed it in, it's like, oh, they've switched it up, right? They went gone this way. Okay. So just be aware, right? We've got some very clear bias here because if you didn't go to that site, you don't got a chance to participate. Ooh, there's a lot of comments going. I'm just popping back here for a second. Yes, right, and that's one of the dangers. So the comment by Will was so they only can get results from their normal web traffic. Exactly. So this is a very dangerous thing. Now, if you're just doing a poll for fun, and let me show you what I mean by this, because people like this. All right, I go to NFL.com for no reason other than I know they always have one. And it's at the very bottom here. Today's poll. Okay. Which NFC team is likely to go from worst to first, right? Please elect a team. Okay, so this is a fun poll, right? And more than that, it's something I, as my couch coach, I don't know, what do you want to call me, can participate in, and it gets me more interactive on their site. That's a quick poll. This isn't a news site, right? This is just, hey, to participate. This is a news site. It's much more dangerous to have a quick poll on a news site because do people think it's more accurate than it is? To a novice, you might not realize, oh, this is bad. I always find News Junkie's results interesting. And I'll tell you right now, News Junkie has very strong political feelings, right? They tend to put both up, but they have very strong opinions on many things. And you can read that with some of their stuff. They're not in favor of teachers, I'll tell you that, right? They're always misleading people on teacher stuff. Um, so uh, so just be aware. News sites probably are the sites that we want to minimize that to, or that they make it clear this is just an opinion poll, and NY did do that, right? Opinion poll, and I don't know if we go to their sites. If I click around, um, they might even address that, right? I don't know if they address it. All right, some older polls. I don't really. I thought maybe they would address it. Maybe if I went to the bottom, a particular thing. You guys are killing me with all the. I got to see. It's like opening a present, popping back to see what's going on in the in our area here. Okay. Oh, here we go. Oh, what's going on here? Our Fox News are getting opinions from their. Okay. All right. So Janelle, that's a very good question, comment, whichever it may be. CNN or Fox News, and I could go to that site. God help me going to CNN or Fox News. Um, and not because of the political standing, it's because they're very busy websites that take time to load. That's what I mean when I say, oh God, going to them. So I type CNN here. I think I checked Fox News yesterday and didn't see anything Polish. Polish? Not Polish as in terms of polls, not Polish people, because that wouldn't make any sense here. Oh, it's such a busy site, see? And it's still loading. There might be one, but I don't necessarily see it. So there are right. So yeah, yes, slanted left or right. All right, yes. So here's what I would say: if they're doing a voluntary response poll, okay, then like a quick poll we just saw or something from their website, yes, probably super biased. Be aware when you see a CNN poll though or a Fox News poll, folks, those are usually polls they've paid for or have used a polling company for. So if you see a Fox News poll, and I want to make sure it make this clear, if you see a Fox News poll says this, folks, probably although they'll have some political leanings, obviously that's more conservative, but they aren't necessarily using voluntary response, right? They're going out and surveying in a more in a better way. Okay, so I want to make that clear. If they use something on their web page, that's different. But when you see like a CNN poll or again Fox News, if they did a true polling, which they do true polling, they team up with people usually. That is don't yeah, those are a little more accurate. So don't immediately dismiss it, right? Um, regarding the sampling, not yes. One comment here that I find very interesting, and this is a shot at Fox News. Sorry, but it's a real life thing that happened. That, and I can't remember. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you do this for many years. Let me get back off here. Stop. Yeah, you don't need to be staring at the Inception thing. And I looked for the article. I couldn't find the article. It's years old now. But around the election time, the 2016 election that Will mentioned here a little while ago, Fox News, uh, uh, the what do they call them? News show hosts, the show hosts, whatever they are. Not the people that do political commentary, not the Hannity person, right? No, real news people. Like Tucker, is that one? I don't know who they're true news people. Brett Blair, is that somebody? I don't know. But they're true news people, right? Not the people that are providing political commentary because they feel some way, but that are actually doing news. Had made the mistake of using opinion polls, voluntary response to on their new shows, as a pictorial representation of how well Trump was doing. And the reason it made news, not that part of it, but the fact that the director of the news, and I don't know who his name is or was at the time, whoever the head of that news department was, sent out a memo to all of them saying, polls that do not use a representative form methodology type thing should not be considered news and should not be posted on sites. Okay, and it was the fact this memo got out that was the big deal, that he was making it clear to them we are a news. Right. Well, Janelle posted something there. We only use reputable polling results. Right, was his point. Don't go the other way because we're trying to show people the facts. Right, that was his point. So I'm not going to click on your link, Janelle. Don't take it personally. I'll check it out later on. There you go. Oh, is that it? Is that it? Oh yeah, thank you. I didn't realize it was Hannity. Okay, I guess this shows me. Okay, so you're a much better web searcher than I am. So I don't know if you're watching the chat, folks, but Dana Blanton, Vice President of Public Opinion Research at Fox News, had laid out clearly to network producers unscientific polls do not meet our editorial standards and should not be used, right? So making it clear, voluntary response, right? Convenient sampling are not news. It's not the way you want to go if you're trying to portray reality. Thank you for that, Janelle. Will, what do you got?
The one thing I'd say with that is that I'm reading the article right now. It also says though Sean Hannity, who is one of their commentators, not a news,
Yes.
He's not a
Correct.
news person. He
Right.
tries to pretend like he is, but he's a
Yeah.
commentator, not a news person. Him using a non-scientific poll is no different than him just speaking anyway, which is commentary. It'd be
I'm going to steer clear of the commenting on that.
well, no, but I mean,
No, I
that
don't.
in the sense
Right.
of like it's the same as Don Lemon. If Don Lemon uses the same poll,
Right.
he's no different. He's commentating, not a news
Mm-hmm.
person.
Right. Right. And probably because it was on their website might be why they thought that was important, right? So, but bottom line, right? People can fall into the trap. Part of the reason this course exists, or maybe one of the main reasons, is for all of you not to fall into the trap of looking at an opinion poll like this and thinking it accurately depicts what's really happening. Okay. Let me get back to our notes, though. Boy, I appreciate. It's like I have researchers while we're talking. It's awesome. So let me get back to notes. Oh, I can do polling in here. I forgot that. I should find a way to bring polling into play more. That's my bad. I'll have to work that out. Yeah, I'm teaching a statistics class and I'm not using a polling feature. That's just embarrassing. Maybe that'll be something we'll add eventually. Okay, let me bring it back though, because as always, somehow I've managed to ramble away the day. Sorry, I get excited about this stuff. I want to wrap up today talking about good sampling. Okay, there are several ways to get a good sample, folks, but the ones that we'll do in the future are more elaborate. We're going to talk about the very basic way, probably the way you would think, and that's called simple random sampling. Folks, it's the most basic approach to getting a good sample. You're going to see SRS a lot. No, that means simple random sampling. That's where each individual in the population has the same chance of being chosen for the sample. So if I wanted to look at the people in this class right now, I wanted to ask a question and pick who I wanted to answer, what I would do is, I think there are 13 of you in here right now. I just glanced at the number. I'm one of them. So there are 13 of you in here, is I would give each of you a number, probably based on where you are in my attendance list there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or I just put all your names in a hat and I'd randomly pull it out, right? Everybody had an equal chance of being selected. If you do that, you remove the opportunity for bias because you're doing no, you may have your internal biases, intentional or unintentional, but if you do this method, your bias doesn't come into play with respect to selecting the sample. The other pieces we'll talk about later. One other piece, and folks, this is key. Catch this because it's good. It sounds sort of the same, but let me read this to you, even though you probably can just see it. Each group of individuals in the population of some required size n. Okay, quick definition here. Let me do my coloring here. N. Okay, folks, this is your sample size. We use n to represent your sample size. So if I took the whatever 14 of you now, and I selected 4 of you to be my sample, my n would be 4. Okay. So I just side noted there in the middle of a very important thing, but okay, so be aware of that particular piece. So each group of individuals of the required size has the same chance of being the sample actually selected. Folks, what that means is that, and I'm just going to go to our list of people present here, attendees, that Graham, Heather, Jacob, and Janelle, the first 4 people on my list anyways, could be a sample, but so could Graham, Jessica, Leah, and Oliver. Every possible combination of people here could happen. And if I'm just picking out of a hat, okay, right? I could pick any group. Maybe the better way to explain this is to give you the counter example. Let's say we're in a classroom and they had just typical desks lined up and there were 3 rows of people, and you were all sputtered out across the room. So there's 3 rows. Sorry. Yeah, 3 rows. So there's 4 people in one row, 5 people in another row, 5 people in another row. I could select somebody randomly from the first row, select somebody randomly from the second row, and select somebody randomly from the third row. And I've got a random sample. However, that's not a simple random sample because the people that are sitting all in the front row can't be a sample, right? Because I only select one of them. Same thing with the second row, third row. Now, you might say, well, what you just described about picking somebody from each row actually may sound like a better approach, and you're absolutely right. But that's a more complicated sampling method we'll talk about here, and I think it's maybe 2 chapters. We'll get to it, but it's a different type. Be aware, simple random sample is I'm going to randomly select people. Okay. Every possible combination of people can happen. All right. So, and got some system here. Different ways to randomize a sample. Well, I already mentioned the first one, the technical name out of the hat technique. It doesn't work as well if you've got 3,000 people in your sample, but in your population. But for this class, yeah, I could put all your names in a hat and do that. Absolutely. I'm just jumping back to the chat, make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay. The second way is using a random number table. I'm going to show you that in a minute because that's something the book expected you to do, I believe, on your homework. So I want to make sure I show you how to do that. And then the last way is a random number generator, which is probably the most common approach these days in terms of because of technology. So a random number generator, let me show you what that is. I just went to random.org. It's on your paper. True random number generators. What I have here is I put my lowest number I want in. So how many people are in right now? Back here. I've got 14 people other than myself in here. 13? Is it 13? All right. That's very disturbing because somebody repeated in there. All right, I'm going to say 14 only because I'm assuming nobody's in here twice, but that's not popping in my head. All right. So with 14. If I come back here, 1 is my min, 14 is my max. So let's say I want to select a group of 4. 1. So I got 7, 2, 9, 12. Probably should write that down. 7, 2, 9, 12. Okay. That just generated those numbers. So I mean, go back to my list. I don't think you could see my list, correct? Right? You're just looking at my notes on the screen. Yeah. Let me bring this back. Sorry. That's my bad. I forgot it was there. All right. Let me share that to you one more time. Thanks for the heads up on that. I should have been paying attention, but sometimes I just get to rolling. Let me share this screen. Goes crazy. Okay. But when I click over here, folks, hopefully you can see off to the right this group, right? Now, back to random.org, where I was just working. I just type in 1 is the min, 14 max, and you could do this too. You can go to random.org. And I hit generate, and I just generated 4 numbers, and I wrote them down. I got 7, 2, 9, and 12. So it randomly generated 4 numbers in there. Folks, if I had a number that repeated, which I'm going to guess this doesn't repeat, but if I had a number that repeated, I would just ignore it and move on. Coming back to my page, my lowest number is 2, so Jacob, you would be in my, oops, better not do anything crazy. Hold on. Jacob would be in my sample. The next number is 7, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Jolene would be in my sample. 8, 9. Leah would be in my sample. And then 10, 11, 12. And Becca would be in my sample. That would be my sample of 4 students from the class. Okay. And I randomly selected. I had no ability to bias that. Okay. All right. So that's how I would select that particular group without introducing bias. The other way is using the random number table. That's the one. That's the one I want to spend a minute or two on. Let's see, share again. Sorry, I'm switching screens. Coming over back to the notes here. Okay. So here are the choosing steps, by the way. Label, assign a numerical label to every individual in the population. Be sure that all labels have the same number of digits. Folks, that with using the computer or the random.org site and that list of participants off to the side, I just labeled the first person 1, 2, 3. There's a very logical approach. If I'm going to do the same thing using the random number table in the back, so using the table in the back of your book, it's like table A, and you could flip to it if you wanted to. I have it kind of off to the side here in a separate thing. And you can't click on it inside. I got to be over here like a normal person. Page 667. Okay. Yeah, it's way in the back. It's literally one of the last things. So it looks something like this. I'm going to blow it up a little bit because it looks a little small. Folks, what this is a random list of digits. Not these ones off to the side, folks. They gave each line a name. So this is line 101, 102, 103 down. So this isn't random, but random digits start here. 1, 9, 2, 2, 3, 9, 5, right, blah, 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 blah. The only reason they're broken up by 5s is if you had all these numbers right next to each other without any breaks, your eyes would be going crazy. So just be aware that the breaks here, these little gaps, are only because you can't really see if you run them all together, or you get lost in it, I guess I would say. So here we go. This is a little more important, and it's more of what I just showed you on the notes. And that's that if you're going to use the random digit table, which again, I think they will expect you to use at some point, you have to assign everybody a number, just like I did with the random.org site. But there's a twist here. And this is an important twist, folks. If again, I click on my, sliding back over, on my list of students, right? Okay. Now we're down to, looks like 13 students, okay? If I take the list of you, I assign Heather to be 1 on mine. I don't know if it works the same way for all of you, if you all see them in the same order, but I see Heather, Jacob, Janelle, the 2 Jasons, Jessica, Jolene, and so forth, right? Looks like it's alphabetical by first name, so I'm going to guess that we're all seeing that. I would assign Heather to be 1, just like I would have previously if she'd have been the first person. Jacob to be 2, Janelle to be 3. That won't work with this table. This is very important what I'm about to tell you because it will be a pain in your butt if not. What you have to do is look at how many people you have. I have, am I back up to 14? It's like one sick game. Oh, Graham's coming back in. I'm back up to 14. Folks, you have to look at your total number. The number here is 14. And as a result, let me slide off to the side here. Okay. Because there are 14 students, there are 1, 2 digits in my final number. 2 digits. Remember, this is a random digits table. So to use this table, I've got to take everybody and assign them a 2-digit number. So Heather can't be 1 right now, as she would be while Graham's still joining on my computer. She can't be 1. She has to be 0, 1. So the first person had to be 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. I can't just say 1, 2, 3. All the way down to number 14. Okay. This is how you have to assign if you're going to use the random digit table. You got to see how many individuals are in your sample, in your population, and however many digits that number has, that's how many digits they all must have. So if I had 300 people in my sample, still going off to my side. So I had 300 people in my population. Sorry, I keep saying sample. In my population, the first person would have to be 001, next person 002, to 300. Okay. Which would be very annoying, by the way. But pay attention to that last number. However many digits it has, the first number has to have that same number of digits. It's just the nature of it, folks. Why does it work that way? Well, let me show you. So, all right, have we settled down as a list right now? We're at 13 naturally. So I'm just, again, going to assign them in order. So Heather is 01, Jacob 02, and so forth. Ideally, if I'm going to do this, folks, I pick a random starting spot. So maybe I'll pick 105. Often this happens just by throwing up your pen on the paper, seeing where it lands. I now look and I go across, folks, because every person has a 2-digit number. I'm looking at 2-digit numbers in a row. First one's 95. Next one's 59. Next one's 29. None of those numbers represent somebody in my 01 to 13. I got 40. Nope. Okay, finally, I get to 07. So whoever 07 is, that's the first person in my sample. Back to it. Oops, I thought I clicked over. I must have missed. 69, 97, 19. Okay, and then I see my next. Well, did I have? Well, I only have 13. It's heartbreaking. So we skip 14, 81, 60, 77, 95, 37, 91, 17, 29. When you finish a row, you just go right to the next row. 68, 41, 73, 50. Ooh, 13. Woohoo! Okay. We're up to a sample size 2. 15, 52, 97, 27. This doesn't look like a fun task. Oh, wait, 80 or 08, sorry. Will be my third one. And I could keep going to get more members. Folks, this is I know you're thinking, this is a lot more annoying than just using the random.org site, but it's what the book will expect you to do, so just be aware of that. One quick comment, there is one trick you can use to make your life easier. If you have 100, well, 10 or 100 or 1,000, multiples or powers of 10, then there are ways around it. If you had a sample size, I'm sorry, one more time, correct my term, a population size of 100 exactly, if you were to label them, you'd label them 001, 002, and so forth to 100. Folks, it will take forever to get that sample size. One of the tricks you can do is rather than going 001 down to 100, you could start at 0. Give the first person 00, go to 99. So a little trick, right? Starting at 0, going to 99. Why do that? It will make you get your sample out. You see over here what I just did, how long it took me to find my sample? You have 10, 100, 1,000 is your population size, folks. Assigning them with that little trick will save you going on and on and on and on, line to line, which can be super annoying. Okay. So that is, coming back to my notes and wondering where they are. Oh, they're there. How we use the random digit table. I don't know if that was a great example. I won't do my, oh yes, great questions here. Yeah, let's see. So what do we use in, oh, and it disappeared on me now. I have to slide on over to the chat. Where's my driving tool? There it is. Go ahead, Will.
You go through, like, and you started at line 105, and then
Let me
you
slip back to it. Yep.
zero, and then you get
Yep.
07. You should have selected 14 because that would have been in the right number.
Yeah, it was. We're at 13 at the time, so yeah.
So whatever. So are we using the number that we underlined? So when you underline 07, that means the first person is 07, the next person is the next number we get to.
Right. Yeah, the next number that fits. Yes. So I underlined them in red. And again, you're right. If we'd had 14 people at the time, it would have been 14. I just looked up and saw only 13 people in the room. So our first person was 07. Our next person, we didn't get to the next line, 13. And then 8. And we go, and if we wanted a sample size, I only did a sample size of 3 because I was too lazy to continue. But we could do a sample size of 10, 20, keep going. And if we got a repeat, we just throw that one out.
So I guess my question really is, so we would, knowing we had 13 people, we wanted to assign a number for 13 people, we'd be looking for 01 through 13.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I
Absolutely.
didn't understand.
Yep. It's weird. So, do you folks want to try one really quick? Here, why don't we do this? Why don't I give you one? We got, I think, jumping back here, this is kind of the end of my notes for today. Yeah, the end of chapter 2. So why don't we try a quick example? You can use I'll keep my random digit table up here. Again, or if you have the back of your book, you can just look there. Okay. So if you could, take a moment. Let's imagine we have 50 people in our population. 50 people. I want you to start at line 109. Give a little space here. Follow that across and select a sample of 5 people. So I want a sample size 5, and you have 50 people in your population. So go us there. Find me the numbers that would correspond to those 50 people. So we have to assign numbers first, but we don't actually have numbers to assign here. So find me the first 5 people. Okay. All right. So, the numbers I got were, I'll share mine. 36 was the first one. So as I was going across here, probably could guide you through it, right? 36, right? Then 00, no, 91, no, 93, no, 65, no. But then I get to 15, that's my second one. 41, yep, that's between 0, 1, and 50. 23, I'm still good. Life is good. So far I've got 36, 15, 41, and 23. Then I see 96 now. But 38, there's my last one, 38. So I only had to go this far. Much better luck this time because we had a bigger list of numbers. So my overall results were, let me jot them off to the side, see, make sure they match up. Were 36, 15, 41, 23, and 38. That's an 8. Folks, so what you would now do is go back to your list of 50. I say 50 people, but as I mentioned last class, folks, it could be Oreos, right? Maybe we're taking a sample of Oreos. It doesn't have to be just people. Okay, we assigned Oreo number 01, 02, 03. Make sure you assign the numbers before you pick the numbers in the end. You might know, oh, I've got 50 people, so I'm going to just do my random digit table real quick and find out which 50, and then assign the numbers. But that introduces the possibility of bias, because maybe somehow in your head you connect people that you want to select with the numbers you want to come out. So make sure you assign the first person to be 0, 1, and so forth before you do this part. Okay. Again, it keeps the bias from being introduced. Clarification on that? Can I answer a question? This is a good time for this stuff because it always brings up some questions because it's just weird. Go ahead, Will.
So the 5 numbers we pulled, those would become the numbers we would use in the random generation of who we wanted in our sample.
Right. So we would go to whoever we assigned 36 to and ask them to be part of our survey. We'd go to whoever got assigned the number 15, whoever we assigned number 41, 23, and 38 to, and we'd ask those 4 or 5 people to participate in our survey or whatever we're doing. If I'm doing what do you call it? Quality control, and be aware, right, folks, this is a big area where I haven't mentioned yet, but quality control is an important one. If you're on a production or manufacturing plant, if you're producing so many of something, I don't know, a certain screw. I do this because I've been putting together patio furniture over the last few days, and it's always fun. There's always something that doesn't fit right. If you get a screw, you want them to be universal, same size, and like that. But we've all got that screw that doesn't quite fit right? Because there are errors in these plants. They have what's called a quality control sample, quality control department. And what they do is they do a sample of screws from their assembly line, and they make sure they meet the criteria within so much error. Okay, as long as everything's fine, they know they're sending out faulty products, right? Every company sends out faulty products, folks. They try to minimize the number that they send out, right? To be 100% accurate costs money, which is why sometimes to get the better product, you have to pay more, because if you're going to do true quality control and you want 100% everything's perfect that leaves the factory, it costs a lot more money to do that. So quality control. So they would do something like this. They'd pull the 36th screw, the 15th screw, the 41st and the 23rd and 38th. As the day began, they'd probably generate those numbers and pull those screws or whatever you're doing off the line, and somebody tests them. And maybe there's a way to do it electronically now, right? Scan it or something, but they are checking that. That's quality control. All right, so that's kind of what I had for you today. Hopefully that covered stuff. I know that random digit table is a little weird, and I don't know if I did a great job explaining it, but hopefully at least guided you a little bit on the type of samplings we're going to be introduced to here. Questions on any of the stuff I did today? Clarify a topic would be helpful. Normally I can see all your faces in a classroom and be like, oh, Jason, you look very unsure right now or something, but I can't do that. So let me know if you have a question or something I could clarify. Okay. Questions on chapter 1 or chapter 2? I don't know if you've got started on those homeworks. Chapter 1 or chapter 2 homeworks that I could address? You could ask, and I could take a look at the question and provide a little insight on. I'll try to remember to do that. So remember that for next time. So on Thursday, if you're looking over chapter 2, and if you're getting ahead and working on chapter 3, right? If you're doing that, feel free to come in with questions from the book if you're stuck on something, or you just don't see how they got there, and I'll be happy to chat about those. Okay. The even ones, obviously, I'll minimize what I'll provide some feedback on, but won't go over them too detail. I see. Questions or anything? Okay. All right, then I think we're good if everybody's good. If you have a question, you're welcome to hang out and ask individual questions if you want. If not, I'll see you all on Thursday. We'll jump into chapter 3 and tackle that one that's got some good stuff in it. See everybody Thursday. Remember, homework due, the dates, and blah, 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 blah. That stuff. Hang around if you've got questions. I'll let people kind of take off, and then I'll take questions. Oh, Becca, I was going to check something for you. Let me do that while we see if I'll glance real quick.
I'm also completely lost about the.
Okay. Homework. Oh, there we are. I'll check that, then I'll come back to you.
That sounds good.
Okay. All right, looks like it came through just fine. I can read everything.
Okay.
It all looks good. Oh, you did a lot. You did a lot of extra work, didn't you?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Woo.
But I did it also
Okay.
for practice.
Okay. All right. Yes, and that's the other thing, right? Is don't be afraid if you want to practice a little bit more to go ahead and do that. Did you want to come into the private room, or was it a more general question? Doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother me either. When you said the 59, where were you getting your numbers? Like I don't understand how you were getting your numbers. That when you started talking about random digits, I just disappeared, kind of.
That's okay. It's a weird one. So, is it okay if I bring the chart back up?
Yes. Oh, please, yeah.
Okay. So let me do that. Grab my. Will, did you have a quick question before I jump into this? I just wanted to do it. Was it?
No, I'm actually listening. Because I missed the
Okay.
last 10 seconds. I got a phone call.
Oh, okay. Okay. Leah, did you want to take a minute and ask your question? Leah, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
What did you have a question?
No, I didn't have any.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure before I tangented. I went on a tangent with Becca that everybody was okay. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump on over here and bring that up again.
I do have a quick question. How do you use the chat on this thing?
Okay, so if you look in your bottom right-hand corner, you should see like a double arrow. It's purple.
Yes, I see it.
Ooh, I can probably stop recording, by the way. I just realized I was still recording. Hold on.